Hi, Movie Recap Brothers here. Today, I'm going to explain an action, sci-fi, and thriller film called In Time. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. In the future, humans have been genetically modified to stop aging at the age of 25. The only caveat is that when humans reach the age of 25, they only have 1 year to live. Time is now the world's currency, and a person's life is displayed on their forearm with a timer. The rich can essentially live forever, whereas the poor literally live paycheck to paycheck. Will awakens to discover that he has less than 24 hours left. He walks down the stairs to greet his mother, Rachel, who is celebrating her 50th birthday. When they start talking about money, their celebration is cut short. Rachel informs Will that she has 3 days left on her time and reminds him of the bills and loans that must be paid. Will assures her that he will provide the funds. Rachel says she'll be gone for 2 days working and repaying a loan. She then gives him 30 minutes to pay for a decent lunch. Will kisses her goodbye as he leaves for work. Will meets a young girl named Maya on his way to work. Will happily gives her 5 minutes and sends her away smiling after she asks for a minute. When he arrives at work, he runs into his friend Borel. Will works in a factory that manufactures time storage devices. He clocks out and is paid at the end of a long day's work. He notices that his payment is insufficient and demands more, but the distributor claims that the quota has increased and Will has not met it. Will later meets heads at a local bar, where some men invite him to gamble, but he declines, but not before reminding one of the men that he owes Will an hour. Will travels for an hour to meet with Borel. Borel is inebriated, pointing to someone who has been purchasing drinks for everyone. He claims the man has lived for over a century. Will notices someone looking at the man and decides to inform the man, Henry, that he is being watched. Will tells the man to leave because he is drawing too much attention to himself, but the man refuses. When a group of men walks in, everyone at the bar rushes out. Borel informs Will that they are Minutemen, robbers and extortionists. Borel pulls Will away, but Will plans to stay and observe. Borel leaves him after he assures him that he will not do anything stupid. The leader, Fortis, expresses his desire for Henry's time and even offers Henry the opportunity to fight for it. Henry feels nauseous and goes to the restroom. While a Minuteman looks on, he vomits. Will bursts in, knocks the guy out, and drags Henry along with him. Will and Henry flee, and Fortis and his men pursue them. They escape by climbing over a gate and hiding inside an abandoned building. The Minutemen are close behind and almost catch up with them, but they abandon their pursuit when one of the men tells Fortis that he recognized Will. Will and Henry become friends, and Henry reveals that he is 105 years old. He explains his rash behavior by saying his mind is tired and he wishes to die. Will is irritated because he and his mother have to work multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Henry then reveals the horrors of their world. Rich people raise the cost of living, causing poor people to continue dying and, as a result, giving the rich more time. Will is asked what he would do if he had the same amount of time as Henry. Will responds that if he has that time, he will not squander it as Henry did. Henry mulls over what Will says, and the two retire for the night. When the alarm goes off, Henry decides to devote all but 5 minutes of his time to a sleeping Will. Will eventually wakes up and discovers that Henry has transferred over a century. When he looks for Henry, he sees him sitting on a bridge. As Henry's final seconds tick away, he smiles and falls into the river. Will runs to find Borel but instead finds Greta, Borel's wife, holding their newborn baby. Will pulls Borel aside, and he tells him how much time he has. Will recounts the events of the previous night, and Borel inquires as to his plans for the day. Will intends to bring justice now that he knows the truth. Will gifts Borel 10 years before leaving. Borel goes to the bar on the other side of the street with his newfound fortune. Meanwhile, Rachel repays a 2-day loan and attempts to take the bus, but discovers that the fare has increased and she is unable to afford it. She begs the driver and the passengers, but they all turn away. She starts running because she is desperate. The two are in a race against the clock, and with every second and every step, Rachel's death draws closer. They finally see each other. They run as fast as they can, but Rachel and Will are defeated by death. Rachel, lifeless, falls into Will's arms. Will sobs as he realizes they are only seconds away from living the life they have always desired. The next day, timekeepers recover Henry's body from the river. The scene is investigated by Raymond, the senior timekeeper, and Jaeger, his junior. Raymond notices a camera on top of the bridge as they prepare to leave. Meanwhile, Will is sitting inside a car, dressed in a new suit and sporting a new expression on his face. They cross the time zone, which serves as a barrier between the various social classes. They pass through multiple borders on his journey, paying a toll fee that rises with each one. Will pays a year for the last border crossing, and the driver welcomes him to the city of New Greenwich. The driver inquires as to Will's true motivation for visiting New Greenwich, and Will responds that he wishes to make the people of New Greenwich pay. Will has never been to a city like this before. He starts running as soon as he gets out of the car, still used to living with little time. He looks at his arm and begins to act as if he has all the time in the world. However, he has already piqued the interest of a woman named Sylvia. Will walks into a hotel and requests a suite. Will awakens in his opulent room, still 105 years old. Even though he is sleeping in the most comfortable bed in the best room with the best view, his mother's untimely death continues to haunt him. He tastes gourmet food and drinks for the first time in his life. He pays for his meal and leaves a weekly tip for the waitress. Will stands out from the crowd, according to the waitress, because he moves too quickly. Will responds sarcastically that he doesn't finish things quickly. Will intends to enter the casino, but first he must change his clothes. They see Will in the surveillance footage at the timekeeper's headquarters. According to Yeager, a man crossed multiple borders on his way to New Greenwich. On the computer, they gather more information about Will, and Raymond reveals that he knows Will's father. Will walks into a casino and takes a seat at a poker table. Philippe, a billionaire with eons in his time, meets Will while the dealer deals. Will's winnings from a few rounds of poker total more than 2 centuries. Philippe adds 50 years to the pot. Regardless, Will calls confidently, and the river turns out to be the 6 of diamonds. Will's attention shifts away from the game and toward the lovely dame, Sylvia, who sits beside Philippe. Philippe rolls up his sleeves, revealing nearly 10 millennia of history. He then discusses the enormous disparity between the rich and the poor, blaming it on natural selection. He raises 2 more millennia. Will bites and calls, leaving him with only 30 seconds to save his arm. Will is rewarded with a millennium as a result of the outcome. Philippe's mundane life was enlivened by this. When he notices Will looking at Sylvia, he asks if he believes she is his grandmother, mother, or wife. Will simply states that she is stunning. Philippe introduces her as his daughter, and she extends an invitation to him to a party. Will spends his winnings the next day to buy a brand new car, which he drives to Philippe's mansion. There, he meets 3 generations of women who appear to be sisters, but are actually Sylvia's mom and grandma. Will appears out of place among the upper class. Sylvia comes up behind him and saves him from a lonely night. They become more acquainted with one another, and their conversation leads them to the dance floor. She inquires if he is from the ghetto, but Will neither confirms nor denies her claims. Sylvia tells him about her meaningless life and how the time she is shackles her when it is supposed to free her. While this is going on, Philippe and her wife keep a wary eye on the two, prompting Will to lead Sylvia outside to the beach. When they return, Philippe invites Will to join him for a game of poker. The timekeepers, on the other hand, barge in and confront Will. Raymond is seated in an office and introduces himself. He inquires as to why he is in New Greenwich and how he has over a millennium's worth of time. Will responds truthfully, claiming that Henry gave it to him before committing suicide. Raymond dismisses his explanation, seizes his time, and arrests him. Will asks him as he walks away why he investigates suicide when murders occur in the ghetto on a daily basis. Raymond is taken aback by his statement, which reminds him of Will's father. Will then assaults the timekeepers who are guarding him and rushes out to kidnap Sylvia. They enter through the kitchen and drive away in his car. During a car chase, Raymond rams Will's car, causing them to lose control. Will expertly maneuvers his vehicle while in reverse, narrowly avoiding an oncoming truck. They become separated from the timekeepers and take refuge beneath a bridge. Will requests Sylvie's time, but she declines. They drive along the highways in the morning, running over traffic spikes. The tire blows out and they crash. Fortis and his men make their way over to the unconscious couple. He steals Sylvia's time, but they leave quickly, leaving her with only 30 minutes. Will gives her a few minutes before they dash off to get more time. Will knocks on Borel's door with 3 minutes left. Greta responds and informs Will that Borel died as a result of alcohol poisoning. Sylvia is worried because she only has a few minutes left. Will notices her earring and rushes her to the jewelry store. He underpays them and offers only 2 days because he sees their desperation. Will agrees, and they flee as soon as they hear the timekeeper's sirens. They take a walk through town. Will calls Raymond and requests that Philippe exchange 1,000 years in the ghetto city for Sylvia. Raymond warns him that if he keeps going, he will die like his father. Will claims his father died in a fight, but Raymond claims his father was doing something more dangerous. When night falls, Sylvia settles into Will's apartment. Will tells her about her mother's death after she inquires about his family. He recalls his father, who was a gambler like him but on a different game. His father would engage in a game similar to gambling, but with his time. His father won a lot of money, but his acts of generosity killed him. They discover they are roughly the same age, and their bond deepens as they learn more about each other's past. When morning arrives, he checks to see if Philippe has kept his end of the bargain. Will doesn't believe in time travel, leaving Sylvia dissatisfied with her father. Will intends to let Sylvia go despite not receiving the time. He walks her to the phone booth, handing her a gun as a farewell gift, and she reciprocates with a kiss. She calls her father and scolds him for failing to deliver on Will's request. Will is standing behind her, oblivious to Raymond pointing a gun at him. Sylvia turns and sees Raymond, and she shoots him without hesitation. Will points a gun at a bleeding Raymond, but instead of waiting, he gives him some and the two drive away in his car. Sylvia asks him if he has any plans while the two are parked on the side of the main road. Because they're in a cop car, they act as a timekeeper, blocking an unlucky driver. Sylvia becomes overconfident with the gun and fires a shot, frightening Will and the driver. They steal from the passenger and flee in the new car. Later that day, the two sit in the back seat of their car and watch the news about themselves. Will says she can still go back to her father, but Sylvia doesn't want to go back to her boring life. Will leans in for another kiss, now that he has more time to do so. Philippe meets with his partners in his office and assures them that he did not pay the ransom. They have doubts about his ability to solve the problem, but Raymond enters the room before Philippe has a chance to explain himself. He informs Philippe of her daughter's refusal to be rescued. Philippe apologizes and blames his daughter's obstinacy on Stockholm Syndrome. Raymond refuses to back down and informs him that he intends to arrest his daughter. Philippe tries to bribe Raymond with his time, but he is uninterested and leaves. Will teaches Sylvia how to shoot a gun properly the next day. They discuss Will's plan to give people time, and she says she can help him get the time he needs. A truck slams through the glass panes at the local lending establishment. The two commit a heist, stealing as many timekeeping devices as they can. They encourage borrowers to take as much time as they need, and they all rush in. Later that day, Will donates time to Greta, Maya, and even the Timeline distributor who donates time to people as a form of charity. For the time being, Fortis continues to harass and murder people. He then notices a 10-year reward for the capture of Will and Sylvia on display. Philippe, meanwhile, is watching the news about his daughter's constant attempts to steal from him. Later that night, Raymond and the timekeepers converge on the motel where the two are staying. Will and Sylvia realize they're being pursued and jump out the window to flee. Raymond pursues them through the streets and dark alleyways. As they make their way up the roofs, a shootout begins. They make it onto a bus, but Raymond is left behind. Fortis' search for Will and Sylvia continues. He interrogates a group of people while threatening to steal their time. When one of them dies, a man steps forward and claims to know where they are. At the motel, the two sit on the couch together, discussing the upcoming challenges. They are both aware that if they are apprehended, they will perish. Fortis and his men slam the door in their faces. Fortis, feeling generous, allows Will to play for his life. Fortis rolls up his sleeve and challenges Will to a game of strong arm. Will struggles until the last few seconds, when Fortis loses focus, and then he turns it around. As his subordinates approach the table, the fear in his eyes grows stronger. Will pulls a gun from his ankle and shoots everyone while draining Fortis. Will and Sylvia stand on a rooftop. Will is depressed, claiming that the rich will simply raise the cost of living by stealing. Only 1,000,000 years, he claims, will make a difference. Sylvia concurs, but she has a plan. Philippe enters a building the next day, surrounded by a swarm of bodyguards. Sylvia draws their attention and requests this father. Will, one of the guards, points a gun at Philippe's head. He orders the guards to lay down their weapons, and they kidnap Philippe. In his office is a time vault containing a device with 1,000,000 years of storage. Philippe tries to explain how society will fail if that time falls into the hands of the wrong people. He claims that there will always be someone willing to sacrifice people in exchange for the chance at immortality. Will loses his cool and points a gun at him, but he quickly recovers. Will tells Philippe that immortality isn't worth even one person's life. The two then walk away. Meanwhile, police cars begin to blockade the main road. The timekeepers fire at Will and Sylvia's car, but they miraculously escape unscathed, ramming the toll booth to cross the border. Raymond does not give up and pursues them. When they arrive at the ghetto, Raymond intercepts and crashes into them just as they are about to reach safety. Will emerges unscathed and requests that Maya distribute the 1,000,000 years. Raymond points a gun at the two, but the commotion blocks his view, allowing them to flee. Raymond steals a car, and the pursuit continues. They finally collide in the middle of the road. Raymond admits that he is from the ghetto, and as he learned how to escape poverty, his eyes were opened to the harsh reality that the gap between rich and poor must be maintained. Raymond realizes that his time is running out as they converse. He dies on the spot, and the two try to replenish their supplies. Raymond's car is visible in the distance, and they sprint towards it with only seconds to spare. Will is the first to arrive and is given his time. He then dashes over to Sylvie, who only has a few seconds left. The two run into each other's arms just in time, and they both live to fight another day. Citizens begin crossing borders into more expensive areas. The Minutemen watch as their societal hierarchy crumbles. As the film ends, Sylvie and Will continue their routine, this time traveling to a massive time bank. Let us know what you thought of the movie in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit the like button, it really helps channels like ours out. Thanks again for watching, and take care.